The
Gentlemen,
CIA systematically killed
the intelligence
40,000
is
innocent
clear. We
civilians in
must
Vietnam.
act
These
decisively.
weren't Viet Cong fighters. They were villagers, farmers, children. This is the Phoenix Program, America's darkest secret from Vietnam. Welcome to Classified Hidden Histories, where we uncover the secrets they never wanted you to know. I'm your host, and today we're diving into one of the most horrific war crimes in American history: how a CIA program designed to win hearts and minds became a systematic campaign of torture and murder. The year is 1967. The Vietnam War is going badly for the United States. Despite deploying over 500,000 troops and dropping more bombs than were used in all of World War II, American forces can't defeat the Viet Cong guerrillas, who seem to melt away into the civilian population after every attack. CIA analysts studying the situation reach a disturbing conclusion. Conventional military tactics will never work in Vietnam because the enemy doesn't wear uniforms or operate from fixed bases. The Viet Cong infrastructure is embedded within the civilian population, making it impossible to distinguish between combatants and non-combatants. The solution, according to CIA strategists, is to eliminate the Viet Cong infrastructure entirely through targeted assassination and torture. If American forces can identify and kill enough local Viet Cong leaders, organizers, and sympathizers, the entire guerrilla network will collapse. This strategy becomes the Phoenix Program, named after a mythical bird that rises from ashes. The program's official goal is to neutralize the Viet Cong infrastructure through capture, conversion, or killing. In practice, it becomes a license for CIA operatives and their South Vietnamese allies to murder anyone they suspect of supporting the enemy. The man chosen to run Phoenix is William Colby, a CIA veteran who previously organized similar programs in Laos and other Southeast Asian countries. Colby is intelligent, methodical, and completely ruthless when it comes to achieving American objectives. He views civilian casualties as unfortunate but necessary costs of defeating communism. The Phoenix Program operates through a network of provincial reconnaissance units, elite teams of CIA operatives, special forces soldiers, and South Vietnamese agents who conduct night raids throughout the Vietnamese countryside. These units have unlimited authority to detain, interrogate, or kill anyone they suspect of Viet Cong involvement. The program establishes interrogation centers in virtually every province of South Vietnam. These facilities are equipped with sophisticated torture equipment, electrical shock devices, waterboarding apparatus, and chemical agents designed to break down human resistance. CIA psychologists help design interrogation techniques that maximize pain while keeping subjects conscious long enough to provide information. But the Phoenix Program's definition of Viet Cong infrastructure is so broad that almost any Vietnamese civilian can be targeted. School teachers who educate children about Vietnamese history are labeled communist propagandists. Village leaders who refuse to support the South Vietnamese government are classified as enemy agents. Even farmers who sell food to both sides are considered traitors, deserving of death. The program establishes quotas for each provincial unit, a minimum number of suspected Viet Cong who must be neutralized each month. These quotas create perverse incentives for operatives to kill innocent people, rather than admit they can't find real enemy targets. Better to murder a farmer and claim he was a Viet Cong courier than to report failure to headquarters. Phoenix operatives receive detailed intelligence about their targets from a variety of sources: aerial surveillance, electronic intercepts, and most importantly, paid informants from the local population. The informant system is particularly corrupted, as Vietnamese civilians quickly learn they can settle personal grudges or acquire their neighbor's land by falsely accusing them of communist sympathies. Phoenix operations typically begin after midnight, when entire villages are sleeping peacefully in their homes. Teams of heavily armed operatives surround targeted houses, then break down doors and drag suspected Viet Cong members from their beds. Family members who try to intervene are often killed on the spot. The lucky targets are taken to interrogation centers, where they face weeks or months of systematic torture. CIA-trained interrogators use electrical shocks, waterboarding, and chemical agents to break down their subjects' resistance. Many prisoners die during interrogation from injuries sustained during torture sessions, but most Phoenix targets are simply executed where they're found. Operatives shoot suspected Viet Cong in front of their families, then claim they were killed while resisting arrest. Entire families are sometimes murdered to prevent relatives from seeking revenge or reporting the killings to authorities. The program's brutality extends beyond individual assassinations. Phoenix teams conduct search and destroy missions in villages suspected of supporting the Viet Cong, burning houses, destroying crops, and killing livestock. These operations are designed to terrorize rural communities into withdrawing support from the guerrillas. One particularly horrific Phoenix tactic involves the use of hunter-killer teams that patrol the countryside looking for anyone who might be Viet Cong. These teams have authority to kill Vietnamese civilians on sight if they appear suspicious. Walking at night, carrying food, or being in the wrong place at the wrong time can be a death sentence. The Phoenix program becomes obsessed with body counts as a measure of success. CIA headquarters demands regular reports on the number of Viet Cong killed, captured, or converted. These statistics become the primary metric for evaluating program effectiveness and determining funding levels. The body count mentality creates enormous pressure on field operatives to produce high casualty numbers, regardless of whether the victims are actually Viet Cong. Phoenix teams begin killing random civilians and classifying them as enemy combatants to meet their quotas and please their superiors. William Colby regularly briefs senior government officials on Phoenix's success, using impressive statistics to demonstrate the program's effectiveness. According to his reports, Phoenix has eliminated thousands of dangerous Viet Cong operatives and significantly weakened enemy infrastructure throughout South Vietnam. But the reality on the ground tells a different story. The vast majority of Phoenix victims are innocent civilians who have no connection to the Viet Cong whatsoever. Village chiefs, school teachers, farmers, and shopkeepers are murdered simply because they live in areas where guerrilla activity has been reported. The program's intelligence is notoriously unreliable, based largely on rumors, personal grudges, and torture-induced confessions from previous victims. Phoenix operatives routinely kill people based on information obtained from sources who have every incentive to lie or provide false information to avoid further torture. As reports of Phoenix atrocities begin reaching Washington, senior CIA and military officials work to suppress evidence of the program's crimes. They classify virtually all Phoenix documentation and forbid field operatives from discussing their activities with outsiders, including other American military personnel. When journalists or congressional investigators ask about Phoenix operations, CIA officials provide sanitized briefings that emphasize the program's counterintelligence aspects while downplaying its assassination components. They claim Phoenix is primarily focused on gathering information about enemy activities rather than killing suspected Viet Cong. The South Vietnamese government becomes a willing partner in the cover-up, denying that systematic killings are taking place and claiming that reported casualties are the result of legitimate military operations against armed insurgents. South Vietnamese officials have little incentive to acknowledge Phoenix atrocities since they benefit from CIA funding and American military support. Even within the American military, knowledge of Phoenix operations is strictly compartmentalized. Regular combat troops are told nothing about CIA assassination teams operating in their areas of responsibility. This compartmentalization helps prevent whistleblowing while maintaining plausible deniability for senior officials. When Phoenix operatives do report concerns about civilian casualties, they're typically reassigned to other duties or transferred out of Vietnam entirely. The program's leadership makes clear that questioning orders or refusing to participate in operations will result in career termination and possible criminal prosecution. The Phoenix program's existence becomes public knowledge in 1971 when CIA Director William Colby testifies before Congress about counterinsurgency operations in Southeast Asia. Under intense questioning from anti-war legislators, Colby admits that Phoenix has neutralized over 40,000 suspected Viet Cong since 1968. Colby tries to minimize the significance of these numbers by claiming that most targets were captured rather than killed, and that those who died were legitimate military targets engaged in hostile activities against American forces. He denies that Phoenix conducted systematic assassinations or tortured prisoners during interrogation. But Colby's testimony contradicts evidence already emerging from Vietnam, veterans, journalists, and human rights investigators. Former Phoenix operatives begin speaking publicly about their experiences, describing systematic torture, mass executions, and orders to kill civilians regardless of their actual involvement with the Viet Cong. The most damaging testimony comes from former Army intelligence officer Bart Osborne, who tells Congress that Phoenix was a sterile, depersonalized murder program that killed thousands of innocent people. Osborne describes witnessing torture sessions where prisoners were electrocuted, beaten to death, and thrown from helicopters. Despite congressional investigations and media exposés, no Phoenix operatives are ever prosecuted for war crimes. The program officially ends in 1972, but similar operations continue under different names until the American withdrawal from Vietnam in 1975. The Phoenix program represents one of the most systematic violations of international law in American military history. The program's 40,000 victims were overwhelmingly innocent civilians who posed no threat to American forces or South Vietnamese security. The techniques developed through Phoenix don't disappear with the end of the Vietnam War. Many of the same torture and assassination methods are later used in CIA operations throughout Latin America, Africa, and the Middle East. The program becomes a template for American counterinsurgency operations in dozens of countries. Perhaps most disturbing is how Phoenix demonstrates the ease with which American officials can authorize mass murder when they believe it serves strategic objectives. The program operated with full knowledge and approval from the highest levels of government, including the CIA Director, Defense Secretary, and National Security Advisor. The Phoenix program also reveals the dangers of fighting unconventional wars without clear rules of engagement or meaningful oversight. When the distinction between combatants and civilians becomes blurred, innocent people inevitably become targets of military operations designed to eliminate enemy threats. The victims of Phoenix never receive justice or compensation for their suffering. Their families are never officially notified of how or why their loved ones died. The program's crimes remain largely unknown to the American public, buried in classified files and congressional reports that few people read. William Colby goes on to serve as CIA director from 1973 to 1976, never facing consequences for his role in authorizing mass murder. Other Phoenix officials enjoy successful post-war careers in government, academia, and private industry. The program's crimes are treated as unfortunate excesses of wartime rather than systematic violations of human rights. The next time you hear American officials discuss the rules of war or international humanitarian law, remember the Phoenix program. Remember that the same government that prosecutes war criminals from other countries once operated its own systematic assassination program that killed 40,000 innocent people. Remember that moral principles become meaningless when they are abandoned during times of crisis. The Phoenix program was justified as necessary for victory in Vietnam, but it contributed nothing to American military success while destroying countless innocent lives. This is Classified Hidden Histories, where we uncover the secrets they never wanted you to know. Because understanding what our government has done in our name helps us prevent such atrocities from happening again. The Phoenix program documents are available for public review at the National Archives, though many remain classified or heavily redacted. Every American should understand this dark chapter in our military history, not to promote anti-American sentiment, but to ensure that such programs are never authorized again. In the end, the Phoenix program is a story about what happens when fear and strategic desperation override moral principles and legal constraints. The program's architects believed they were fighting for freedom and democracy, but their methods were indistinguishable from those used by the totalitarian regimes they claimed to oppose.